I'm gonna go through the panel and introduce you very quickly, or you guys can introduce yourselves, like try to give a short description, JC, of who you are.
Hairstylist. Only on weekends. My name is J.C. Reifenberg. I did a half-hour Star Wars film last year called Hughes the Force, and I also run Kevin Smith's YouTube channel and do a lot of video work and things like that with him.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Landa, and I'm an actress. I'm also a video blogger, so I vlog about Star Wars generally. I'm also a contributor now to StarWars.com, and I'm also an avid crafter, and I make all sorts of Star Wars jewelry and clothing.
Hi, my name is Michelle Smart. I own a company called Smart Originals, and we represent artists that paint. And we also do publishing. I work with Marvel Fine Art Publishing and pick the art that we're going to create as limited editions and hand select the artists that we're going to use to produce those pieces.
I'm Randy Martinez. I'm an illustrator. I've been in the business probably, I would say, for big stuff that you guys would know since 1999 with Lucasfilm. I'm now doing some fine art print work with Marvel Comics. I've done work for all kinds of people from the LA Times to Playroom Entertainment. I do whatever it takes. That's my thing.
So how many of you, let me start out by asking, how many of you in the audience are creators looking for a career in the arts? Awesome. Excellent. So I try to mix it up, as you can see, giving a different genre in the entertainment industry. And I thought about, the type of questions that people ask me, as well as, ask me to ask other artists. So this is a combination of my personal questions that I get asked, questions that I'd like to ask, and questions that fans approach me and thought would be good questions to ask. So my first question, I'll start with you, JC. Why don't you give us a little background on how did you get started working in the industry?
Okay.
And let's try to keep the answers a little short because we have an hour and I want to try to get through as many questions and leave room for you guys at the end to also ask questions. So,
I went to film school, and right out of film school I moved to New York City, and I was working at a comic book shop actually, and just trying to find a job, and then I finally found a job on Craigslist with Major League Baseball, and then just like nose to the grindstone, like work until, yeah, just taking anything and everything I could that would come my way, and then keeping my eyes and ears open for other opportunities, even if it was like, oh, I'm making way more money in Major League Baseball, but I want to make feature films, so, always trying to keep my, eye on the prize and not getting wrapped up in like money or what's comfortable. Always trying to like get to that next level.
and you, Jennifer, how did you get started? Pick one industry because you do a lot of things. Yeah. So pick the industry that you feel is important for you to share. Like, how did you get started as a professional in that industry?
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, I told my mom I wanted to be an actor, and she's like, what are you thinking? And so I was like, okay, I don't know. So let me learn a little bit more about the industry. So I got an internship when I was in college at CBS Television City, and I was a page, and I got to work on shows like The Price is Right, Politically Incorrect. I used to answer phones in the director booth at Young and the Restless, and it was a great way for me to learn like the behind-the-scenes stuff and to get to know the business. And was I really sure that I wanted to dedicate, the rest of my life to this? And afterwards, I was like, yeah, I think I do. And then I moved to E! Entertainment Television after that as a PA, and that was it. So, Michelle.
Well, I started also right out of college. I did some work for free for a company here in Los Angeles. It was called Forerunner, and they managed jazz and gospel bands. And from that free work, I was hired, and they moved me from Alabama to Los Angeles. You can imagine my surprise from Alabama to Los Angeles. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But so from there, I worked with Forerunner for 8 years. We went everywhere, all over California, and managed no-name bands until they became name bands. And after that, tired of traveling, I was hired by Warner Brothers, and I worked with mainly the studio stores. and was a national sales and event manager, and did all kinds of special events, including mall appearances with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all those WB shows, trying to promote those shows. And now own my own company called Smart Originals, and still work with artists, very talented artists, and so that's how I started.
I was kind of born into it. Both of my parents are artists. My mom's an art teacher and my dad was an illustrator, and I've just always been around it. So I kind of learned the do's and the don'ts from being around both my parents. As you know, parents can drive everybody crazy, so that's why I say the do's and the don'ts. But I just kind of, it's really hard to explain. I just kind of knew that's what I was always going to do. So I just kept, I would get jobs from that my dad couldn't get to once I got good enough with my skills, and I'd apprentice under him, and then went to art school, and I got my first big break doing Star Wars artwork from during Celebration 1 back in 1999. And started doing Star Wars Kids magazine. That turned into Star Wars Insider magazine, and then eventually Tops and all the other stuff that some of you might be familiar with. So it's just been like one thing after other since the day I was born. Really led me into it.
Awesome. Now my biggest question, and I'm sure a lot of people out in the audience probably have the same question, is how do you deal with rejection? This is something we deal with all the time, every day, and in a variety of ways. We're constantly dealing with rejection, especially as artists. And the more you start working in the industry and the more you put yourself out there, the more you're dealing with rejection. So we'll start with J.C.
I think what's important to know is, like, everybody has their own opinion, and you can, whether somebody loves what you did or somebody hates what you did, you can always learn from that. So I think you just look for whatever the positive is in kind of the perceived negative that they're saying. Or, you know, if you go out and try to get a job, which, like, in TV and film, you know, you're going to send out 100 resumes a day and probably not hear back. And I cannot, you know, as an actor, it's probably 100 times worse. But just always trying to get better and learning from, you know, take whatever knowledge you can and just learn from it.
Rejection sucks. It's really hard, and it took me a long time, because you feel like as an artist you're being so vulnerable, and you're giving people the performance of a lifetime, and they're like, thank you, and you just go, God, did they hate me? What was wrong with me? I shouldn't have worn that outfit. It's nothing to do with you. All you have control over is your performance and your product. But at the end of the day, it's a business. And so they have their own agenda of what they want. And I think the quicker that you kind of come to terms with that, the better off you'll be. And just like you said, you know, finding like some sort of constructive criticism. If you're making YouTube videos, you know, have your friends look at it. And they'll tell you, have your mom, your dad, whoever. And I think that you can really grow from that as an artist as well. So.
Being someone that gets a lot of those letters, you know, it really isn't anything to do with your talent. It is the person that's sitting on the other side. They have an idea of what they want from the project. This is what they want. So when you submit along with, you know, 100 other guys, they're looking at, we're all looking at, okay, what we have here in our head and what we're seeing in front of us. Okay, we're going to go with this guy because it matches my project. It has nothing to do with your skill set and who you are, and that is how you overcome the rejection. You're good, and a lot of times I would say to artists to take an opportunity from that experience and learn from it, and say, is there something, you know, that I could be doing? Ask for the advice. You know, if you have the opportunity, you have a great talking relationship with that person, ask for the advice. Is there something I should be doing differently, or something you can give me some advice and point me in the right direction? And people like helping people for the most part, and they'll give you that advice.
I think dealing with rejection is you have to kind of take on a philosophy that rejection is just part of life, and kind of going off of what you guys are saying, it's something you can learn from. I don't look at rejection as a negative thing. I look at it as an opportunity to improve yourself or to learn. And Michelle, by the way, is my manager, and so we've had a lot of conversations about rejection in artwork. And I think she knows, I hope she knows that I'm confident in myself, my artwork, that my artwork's good, and that I've worked really hard to get to this point. And it's just the conversations we have are not like, how do I get better, how do I get people to like me? It's more about what's going on in the market out there. You know I can do whatever is out there, what I need to do. We just need to figure out what people want to buy, what clients need in their jobs and stuff like that. So, like I said, rejection is just part of it. And the only other thing I guess I would say is that you can actually feel good about being rejected, because if you get rejected, it means that you're trying. You know, I kind of take it back to when I was growing up and I had zero luck with girls. I could not get a girlfriend to save my life. But most of it was because I wasn't trying. I was so scared I wouldn't try. So the first girl I asked out, she just rejected me, and I was so happy, because not because I got rejected, but because I was like, I'm in the game now. It's like I actually tried and got rejected, and I have a record now. So, and anyways, it just sometimes you break things down to simpler things that have nothing to do with the business that you're in. You can kind of figure things out like that as far as rejection goes.
Just to build off of what he's saying, is I think a lot of it is building self-confidence and finding ways to build your self-confidence so that when you know you're proud of what you did, it doesn't matter so much what somebody else is saying. Emotionally, you know, you can still like intellectually pick up like, oh, this guy didn't, you know, like the video because I had a bad edit or it was bad lighting or something like that. But if you know, like you put your heart into it, you work at it every day, you try to get a little bit better today than you were yesterday, that's how you build self-confidence. And when you have that confidence, you're not so concerned with like what YouTube trolls are saying they don't like what you're doing.
Exactly. I always walk around and I try to share positive, inspiring quotes. And so I'll share this one with you. I always say, be bold, be brave, believe. And it's all about believing in yourself, having a dream, daring to dream, living it and doing it, and not being afraid. Life's too short. So with that being said, J.C., how do you balance? This is really important, balancing and juggling and finding the time to create, finding the time to, you know, focus on your projects that you want to do. I know J.C., I know all these people on the panel, and this is one of the main reasons why I chose them, because they're all juggling a lot of different things at once, and they're amazing at doing it. So this question is really important. How do you balance your personal projects with your paying projects?
What I personally do is I look for work that will pay me the most amount of money with the and take up the least amount of my time so that I can focus on what I want to do. That being said, like fortunately for me, I'm kind of at a point now where I'm just like, if I'm not going to take a job unless I think it's going to advance me in the areas of my personal projects. I work with filmmaker Kevin Smith, and I do that not because I love going and taping podcasts and doing those types of things. You know, I want to tell narrative stories, but I do it because, I mean, Kevin Smith has been doing it for 20 years, and every day I can learn something from him that betters me with what I'm doing, and I'm helping him build his podcast company. So it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. And then the other, like the short answer is like, I don't really hang out with my friends ever. I work all day and then I come home and I work all night. You know, I sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a night at best.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is in the beginning you're going to have a day job. You know, you're going to have to wait tables, you're going to have to be a bartender, babysit, do whatever you need to do to pay the bills, because that will be a lot less stress for you. But then figure out, like, you don't want your day job to get in the way of your dream job. So don't ever miss auditions, you know, always, you know, wake up early if you have to record your video blogs, or stay up late working on your crafts and your Etsy store. Do whatever it takes to not compromise your passion. And I think it's tough, but it's so worth it, because when you're waiting tables, you can just be like, oh, I get to go home and craft. I'm so excited. It's something to look forward to, and then you know that you have a goal in mind. So.
Balance. It's tricky. I always try to advise artists to always be creating, and that's their passion is to create. But yes, you have to have a different job. When you first start out as an artist and you're just trying to get your foot in the door, You may have to do everything that comes your way, just like you said, everything that comes your way to pay the bills. Any job is not too good or too bad to take. You want to build that portfolio, so you want to have all those different things on your resume. So take as much as you can that comes your way. But also, I always tell Randy, it's an 80-20 rule. 80% of what you do needs to be commercial and make your money. We have to have 80% for every gallery that we do. That's got to be art. How many times you're going to draw Batman? Well, as many times as they will buy it. And then 20% of it, you can just do whatever you want to do. Let it go. Any character you want, however you want to do it, and then we can experiment and we can see what's working in that area. Maybe there's a new genre that comes out of that. So I always say 80-20, 80% commercial and 20% of your fun time, until it pays enough where you can do 80% of your fun stuff and 20% of the commercial stuff.
I totally agree that it's easier said than done. A lot of times, just because as a creative person, you have things that are constantly making you excited and your brain just wants to go off and do it. You know, I think you keep a little bit of a child inside you that does that, that is just, you know, completely focused on, like when I was a kid, completely focused on Star Wars figures, and then all of a sudden G.I. Joe came out, and then it's, whoa, completely forgot about Star Wars, you know, for a little while. And, but with art, it's the same thing. So for me, the way that I do it is I kind of make the things that I have to do, you know, my means to an end to get to the things that I want to do. So a real quick example of that is we just produced my very first Marvel print of Spider-Man. Thank you. You guys can clap if you like. I love Spider-Man, and we're doing Captain America and a Hulk. I personally would love to do a Silver Surfer and a Doctor Strange piece, just Strange myself, but you know, nobody's really buying prints of Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange out there. So my goal is to sell so many Spider-Man and Captain America Hulks that they just want to have anything that I do, and then I can do that Doctor Strange and Silver Surfer that I want. And so I kind of use those as goals, the things that I have to do, as a means to get to the things that I want to do. And then in the meantime, when I have a chance to procrastinate, I'll do those little things like write music or whatever, like that. And then like with what J.C. said, you just kind of neglect your friends. And that just really, kind of jokingly, it just has to do with your focus. You know, you have to be focused on things you have to do and the things that you want to do. And good friends will understand that.
Well,
just be really charming when you do see them.
That's definitely, you guys all touched on some very important points. And the one thing that I want to mention is that you have to have a plan. You have to have goals. Because if you don't have a destination, you don't have direction. If you don't have a destination, you're going to be going around in circles. Just think of it as you're driving. I'm writing a book, and so I'll share a little bit about that. You have to have goals. You have to have a destination. Write down your goals, because that's going to help you have a plan, a strategy, and every day make a schedule for yourself, you know, so that you have time to promote and you're not promoting all day. You have time to create, and you have time to work and do other things and have a life and have friends. And the more that you write down scheduling, the easier it becomes. And the more you do it, it becomes habitual. And before you know it, it's like you're reaching your goals, cross it off the list, do the next one. Just a little tip from me. Networking, the most important part about networking is establishing relationships, building relationships. Be nice to everybody you meet, and I can't stress this enough. I wrote about it in our book. You know, the art of self-promotion is an art form in itself, but when you meet people, be nice, because you never, ever, 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 ever know who you're talking to, and I've seen so many people be mean to the wrong person, and it's a missed opportunity. So with that being said, I would love to ask J.C., I'll start with you, because this is so important. Having a positive attitude, I can't stress this enough. When you're happy, it's contagious, and people want to work with you. People want to know you. People want you to be a part of their project, because you're basically representing them. Whoever is hiring you, you are representing their company. You're representing them. So if you're positive, it's good for them. It's good business for them. You're inviting energy and people, and everybody wants to be around you. When you're negative, You're chasing people away, especially online. Stay positive. So with that being said, JC, how important is it to you, and from your personal experience, on having a positive attitude?
I mean, that's, they say attitude is everything, and it realistically is. I mean, if you look at even your friends, right? How hard is it to like teach somebody to do something? You can give them a book, you can give an online tutorial or anything, and you can teach a monkey to use Pro Tools or Avid or a video camera. Realistically, you can. But in order to change somebody's attitude, how hard do you have to work? Like, how many of you guys out there have a boyfriend or girlfriend that you're like, I can change him, and like you work forever and they'll never change, right? So like, if you have, that has to come from within. Like, you have to have, if you have a positive attitude, like you bring everybody up around you. And what I've found is like, when, even if I go into something I don't know how to do it, but I'm like, I'm gonna get it done, like I'm just gonna figure it out, the people who are around me are like, oh, I know somebody who has a house you can shoot at, or I know how to do this, or I know how to do that. And because you're excited and you have a good attitude about it, they want to be around you. They have a good attitude too. They're like, oh, let's all pitch in, you know? And a lot of your problems can be solved just with attitude in ways that you don't realize if you're just negative. And then the other thing about being negative versus positive is when you're positive, like your eyes and ears are open looking for good things to happen, right? The world is basically like, its reality is like your interpretation of events. And if you're, not to get like super existential, but if everything that's coming in through your senses, you interpret it as negative, you're gonna just see everything around you as negative, where I'm gonna see the exact same thing and look at and see it as an opportunity, or see it as a positive. And I wake up happy and I go to sleep happy, and I'm fairly successful at what I do. Legitimately, it's all the way I interpret what's going on in the world around me. And I control that. Like, you all control the way that you interpret events in your lives. So.
I used to work at Disneyland, and they taught us, it really was the happiest place on earth, but they taught us PMA, positive mental attitude. I was like, this is so dumb. But you know what? It really works. As an artist, there are so many tortured artists. You'll meet so many people who are like Eeyore, and you're just like, I just don't want to be around you. The more positive you are, the more like good vibes, that's kind of new agey, but the more good vibes that you put out, I swear it will come back. People will remember you. They'll want to work with you, because this business, the entertainment business, art world, all these businesses are so small. You will continue to run into the same people over and over again. And if they know you as the negative Nancy, they won't want to work with you. I mean, I would much rather work with somebody who I know, that I know is fun, and that I know is going to be able to take direction from me and not have an attitude. So I think to have longevity as an artist, both mentally and for your career, you have to keep positive.
Ditto. I mean, you can't say it enough. I mean, we have actually, there are really some brilliant artists, and sometimes they're very difficult to, you're not trying to art direct them too much, but you're trying to get something out of them, and they just are not willing to do it. So what you do is you end up, that person gets a rep, and then you go, well, it takes too long to get what we need out of him, so we're going to go with this other guy. It's really important. Positive attitude. You know, don't put your feelings on your sleeve. Be able to take constructive criticism and you know, learn from it. But yeah, we definitely sometimes will not use certain artists because we know they're difficult. So positive, positive, positive.
How many people here have struggled with that? Like struggle with staying positive all the time? I mean, honestly. A lot of you guys. Okay, well.
I'm gonna raise my hand. Everybody looks at me. I have to say this because everybody's like, "You're the most positive person I've ever met in the internet." But it's a fight, you know, especially when you're constantly being rejected. But I find it's easier to be happy than it is to be negative.
Well, I want to tell you guys that I can relate with all of you. Growing up, my influences were very negative. There's just a lot of excuse making, and everybody owed everybody something, and that was what I grew up with. That was my reality, probably till I was about 20, not probably about 30, and I didn't really know any other way until I started hanging around positive people, and I started seeing what was going on for them. So I quickly changed my attitude to how come things aren't happening for me? How come that person's getting that? How come they're getting that and I'm not getting that? As soon as I learned to stop asking that question and just be positive and say, you know, this is art, this is what I do. I am so lucky to be making art, and start looking at the positives in life. It's contagious and it starts growing. I still struggle with it at times. There's certain things that trigger that in me, but I've grown to get tools to deal with that. You know, I've talked to a lot of other artists. It's another important thing, is talking to artists, even one-on-one. I was lucky enough to have a one-on-one conversation with Ian McKay. Do you guys know who that is? He did all the concept work for the first, well, episode 1, 2, and 3. And just by chance, and I talked to him for 20 minutes, and he gave me, I'm not going to bore you guys with it, but gave me the best tool to how to deal with discouragement and just severe negative feelings. And it's worked for me. And I picked up other tools from people like Sergio Aragonés, sorry to name drop, but it's a struggle. I'm saying this because I want you guys to feel alone out there, okay? But being positive is so important for everything they said.
And one thing I want to stress and add is, it's okay, we all have our bad days. It's okay to feel and have a bad day, but don't post online when you're feeling bad or negative, because even if you don't think people are watching, everybody's watching. Everybody, companies, art directors, people that might be thinking about hiring you, and the minute you post something negative, you're done. They won't say anything to you, but you won't get hired. So when you're posting online, even if you're having a bad day, just walk away from Twitter and come back to it when you have something fun or exciting or silly to share. Don't post negativity online.
That will also lead to people going negative back to you, and then you get caught up in a whole web of negativity that you're like, how did I get here? You started it.
So with the bringing up the internet and Twitter and stuff, do you think that every artist should have a website, and how important is social media today? Because the one thing, when Randy and I were writing Sketch Card Mania, we were looking for artists. This is a book that we wrote together. We were looking for artists, and we had 50 artists originally that we were planning on putting in the book. And I can't tell you how many artists did not have a website, did not have an official website. They weren't on Twitter, they weren't on Facebook. So I'll start with you, J.C. How important is it now, especially today, to have a website and be on social media?
I'll focus on Twitter real quick because I have a good story with that. So I wrote this Star Wars fan film, Hughes the Force, and I wrote a role for Kevin Smith into it, and I told everybody, Kevin Smith's going to do the movie. And actors in Hollywood are like, oh, how do you know him? Oh, I don't. Right? And but Kevin's very, very active on Twitter, and I was like, well, like, I know he does podcasts, I know he does all this stuff, so I'll just basically like kind of cyber stalk him, but not cyber stalk him like, at that Kevin Smith, give me a job. At that Kevin Smith, can I get, you know what I mean? I just kind of picked up the way he was, and we started shooting the movie. We went to Kevin's podcast, we did all this stuff, we couldn't get his attention, and then on Twitter one day, he said, hey, I need a cameraman for my show tonight. And that was March 25th of, 2011. And since that day, Kevin's been paying me to come back and do all that other stuff. And then he did my movie as a favor to me for doing all of the things I did for him. So like, I mean, it's just like a quick story. Like, Twitter gives you access to people that you would never have access to before. And if you kind of play the game the right way, you know, and it's not like, gimme, 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 you know, what can I do for you? You know what I mean? Or advice, or just building that bridge, like, it'll get you places like you never imagined you'd go.
Yeah, I love Twitter. It's incredible. I mean, it gives you the power to connect with people that you'd never be able to connect with. I used to tweet, well I still do, I tweet a lot about Star Wars, and that's how I got in contact with my friend Bonnie Burton and my friend Matt Martin over at Lucasfilm, and then from there, that was how we connected, and now I'm working for StarWars.com, and that opportunity never would have happened if I hadn't been tweeting about Star Wars kind of just incessantly. But also I think having a website, especially nowadays, you have to, because you're going to meet people, and I mean, I know myself, sometimes I'll be shy when I'll meet someone, or I'll go to a craft fair and I'll be like, oh, I really want to buy that, but I don't have the time or the money. And I'll go home and I'll find them, and then I'll check out their site. And a great thing too is you get to know the brand, not just the brand, but the person behind the brand. And especially if you're an artist, or you're an actor, or you're a crafter, people want to know you. People want to know what your philosophy is, and what your thoughts are, and are you funny, and are you silly, and what are you passionate about? And they can find all of that through your internet hub, which is your website. And you can make it on WordPress or even Tumblr. It's really easy, so there's no excuse.
Yes, I think definitely everywhere that you can post your art, you should post it. A lot of times we go online and we're looking, okay, who's the next guy that we want to do a print? And we'll see a great image and we'll go, wow, okay, then we want to go to this site and see other things. So if you do have a website, I'd say make it as professional as possible, easy to navigate for someone like me that goes on and I want to see a broad spectrum of your portfolio. I want to see all the professional jobs that you had. So I can go in and click and go, oh, they did this for Warner Brothers. Oh, they did this for DC Comics. Oh, they did this for Marvel or Topps or, some other publisher. So I think professional and post and tweet, and every time you do something new, tell the world about it and put it on the homepage and blog and do all of that. I think it's key. I mean, you can't not do that today as an artist.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about, the game, learning to play the game, that's part of the game. It's just, I mean, it's hardly, I don't want to sound like a jerk and say it's hardly a discussion, because it is, but I'm just saying it's just what you got to do. People need to be able to find you. That's what you got to do. I recently turned mine into just a static look at my artwork into a blog, because I just found that that's what's going on, the trend. So that's the other part, is pay attention to how things are being done online. So just like I was telling you how to pay attention to your industry, pay attention to online trends, and they're changing like every week, it seems like. Every day. For me, Twitter is really difficult because I'm painting most of the time. So most of the thoughts that I have in my head that people would, Twitter, like I'm going to the bathroom now or whatever, that thought already leaves. I mean, I go to the bathroom first, but the thought, I mean, you know what I mean? People think and tweet at the same time. I can't do that. So I find, for me, Facebook seems to work because I'm able to post pictures that I can see, and then I can see what people like, and then I can write comments and whatever about it. And for me, that's the tool I choose to use and I like, and I can stay with. So it's kind of about finding what works for you. But have something out there.
I'll say one thing also about that, and I know that some of us have had issues with it. If you are going to post something on the internet, make sure it's yours. Make sure it doesn't belong to somebody else. And if, say, like it's a collaborative thing, make sure you give credit where credit's due. I'll shoot stuff and somebody else will edit it. Make sure you say, oh, I shot this, or I edited this, or I did graphics for this. Make sure you claim which part of it is yours, because chances are somebody's going to see it and they will have already seen it on somebody else's website, and then you look like a thief or plagiarist. Just make sure you give credit where credit's due, and make sure that you did play a part in it if you're claiming some part of it.
And sign everything and make sure that you have it posted, and post it a lot. I had somebody try to use my artwork and claim it as their own on Facebook, as far as using my self-portrait, which doesn't make any sense. They just took my self-portrait and put their name under it, as it was them, but anyways. So just, yeah, right? Really weird. But this is a story for another time. But anyways, just, sign it.
So basically, my advice to everybody is make sure you have an official website, whether you use WordPress, Blogger. That's your home base, your official website. Think of it as your home. That's your house where people know they can find you, and they can find what your latest news is, they can see your latest artwork, and then with, you know, the social media, figure out which works for you best. But I recommend to everybody to try to be on Pinterest, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, and there's a way you could use Hootsuite, and you can post once there, and Hootsuite will share to all the sites for you. So you don't have to go to each one and spend the time posting on every site. There are sites like Hootsuite where you just put one post and you tell it where you want it to send it, and it sends it out like shoo. And it's really important because the more you put your art out there, the higher you come up in the Google search, the more that people will become familiar with you. When you're selling your art, you're selling you. Your art is a piece of you. So when people buy your art, they're buying you. So just remember that too. So I'm going to ask these guys one more question. I'm going to put questions to you guys because I'm sure you might have some really interesting questions that I didn't think of. So my last question to you guys on the panel, I'll start with J.C., is what advice can you offer to these artists sitting here that are seeking a career in the arts?
I'm going to actually steal advice from that somebody gave me. I used to work at this job I hated in Beverly Hills, and we interviewed celebrities like Kim Kardashian and stuff, and I just like wanted to blow my brains out because it was so far away from what I wanted to do, and I was just putting garbage out every single day, but spending a lot of time putting garbage out for not very much money. And one day, Thomas Jane, the actor, came in to do an interview, and he's kind of like I'm going to say this in a really nice way, very surly, and did this, you know, the host did this whole interview with him, asking, you know, the softball BS questions you always have. How does it feel to do this or whatever? And the last question was always, do you have any advice? Exactly what you just said. And he looked directly into the camera I was holding, and he said, if you have a passion, you have to go after it. If you have a job that gets in the way of your passion, quit. He's like, if it is a passion is something that you do, you would rather sleep, or you would rather do your passion than sleep, or eat, or go and hang out with friends, or get drunk, or go out on a date. That's what a passion is, right? It's something you want to do more than anything. If you have a job that gets in the way of that, quit, because your passion will drive you to success. And 2 weeks later, I quit that job, wrote Use the Force, met some of the best voice actors in the world who did the movie, met Kevin Smith, made more money than I had in a very, very long time. And this was actually really cool. I got a chance to go back at Comic-Con about 1 year later, and I bumped into Thomas Jane. And I said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And he was like, oh, God, get away from me, right? But I relayed the story. I said, thank you so much. Like, your words changed my life. In 1 year, I've doubled my income. I have a movie. I have relationships with all these people in Hollywood now. And, like, that came from your mouth. And immediately, he's like, oh, let me get your contact info. That's so cool. Like, and then there's another connection right there. Just because I was saying thank you to him for moving me to be like, wait a minute, I don't have to be afraid. Like, you did it, other people who are successful did this, like, I don't need to be afraid. Okay, boom. And it's scary, it's like super scary to do that, but like, I mean, think about it. If you want to do something more than anything else, like, who can stop you?
And it was really quite simple. He said, you draw. I mean, that's what it is. You draw everything, just constantly draw. And just work on that's really my advice, just work on your skills constantly. But then also understand whatever you're doing at the moment, you're only going to be as good as you are at that moment. So anybody who tries to make a masterpiece every time that they make a piece of art is never going to make a masterpiece, because they're trying to do something they can't do. You know, so if you're going out to draw a bunch of portraits and your artwork doesn't look like Drew Struzan, you haven't failed. You're just as good as you are at that moment, and you just have to be proud of where you are at that moment. A painting, the same painting that you do in 10 years is going to be 1,000,000 times better as long as you keep practicing. So don't get discouraged because your artwork doesn't look like Drew Struzan or Alex Ross or somebody like that. Just be happy with who you are in the moment, but work on getting better.
Awesome. I thought of one more question, but before I get to that one more question, know your worth. I walked into Kid Robot a few months ago, they were putting I do custom toys amongst many things, and they were putting 2 of my dolls on display, and they asked me the question, well, how much do you want to sell it for? And I went, wow, I get a say on how much you're going to sell my work for? And so I'm sitting there and I was like having a fight within myself, and the woman looked at me, she could tell that I was like fighting within myself, like, should I, price it? Am I going to price it too much? Am I going to price it too little? Am I asking too much and they have to raise it? And she said, look, she just looked at me and she said, know your worth. And I went, she's right. And it's been stuck in my head like since, like, we're constantly questioning and doubting, and how much are we worth? How much is our work worth? But think about how much time you put into your work. Think about, the time, the spirit, the soul, coming up with the idea, the supplies that you buy, and don't be afraid to charge what you think you're worth, because once you put a price on your art, you're setting a precedence, and people will start to expect that that's what you're going to charge for your work, and as soon as you try to change it, they're going to get mad. So start at a place where you're really comfortable, that you feel is what you're worth, and when you're pricing your work, know your worth. But on that note, I thought of a really important question that a lot of people, I've seen in the industry, there's a lot of artists that are afraid to charge anything, so they're working for free. And so I do a lot of charity work. I founded an organization called Women for a Cause back in 1999, and I work with a lot of artists. And I love doing charity work, but not to the point where I'm becoming a charity. So with that in mind, how do you feel about artists working for free?
Well, coming from like the film background, that is, working for free is a really good way to get experience at the beginning. But if you've been in the business for 10 years and you're still doing freebies here and there, or if you have people that expect you to do freebies, which it's like, oh, hey, I'm your friend, like, can you edit my demo reel? I'm like, okay, well, that's 8 hours that I'm not working on my project, So think about your time always in terms of that, where, Jennifer may want me to edit her demo reel, but that's also, I'm like, well, that's what, what I mean? It pulls away from that. So I think at the beginning, like, to build your portfolio, to get the experience, to get the things on the resume, to get the videos up on YouTube, do whatever you need to do, but at a certain point you kind of have to draw a line in the sand and be like, look, I need to get paid for this.